Tonight's topic is very similar to the topic that we had last time, the topic of intelligence. How are they connected? Well, when we were talking about intelligence, we were talking about there are two kinds of intelligence that we can that are presented to us to develop. One might be called the intelligence where we are basically being driven by our attachments and sort of becoming clever and clever and clever. But that kind of intelligence doesn't really satisfy, it doesn't really bring true the satisfaction that it promises. In the same way, we're going to talk about, the same way we're going to talk about wealth. So I guess that sort of tells you there are two kinds of wealth. There's the wealth that we call the worldly wealth. And again, sometimes driven by, there are certain elements about the wealth that I'm going to talk about, the wealth that we might call the spiritual wealth, and then what you might call mundane wealth. There are certain elements about them that are similar. But there are certain things that makes them drastically different. Okay. Now, there are several sutras where a layperson comes and asks the Buddha about, well, I'm a layperson, what should I do about wealth? Should I, because the people that are following you, they're not supposed to pursue wealth. And that's when the Buddha begins to talk to them about different kinds of wealth. And he includes what the person actually considers to be wealth. And the Buddha doesn't say, no, there isn't anything wrong with pursuing that wealth. As a matter of fact, there are certain kinds of blessings that can be acquired with that kind of wealth because of what you can do with it. So there is acquiring it in such a way that you feel blameless. And then after acquiring it, it gives you a certain kind of a joy, a certain kind of bliss even, where you see yourself, I have this wealth. And this is material wealth, the kind of wealth that we all know about. The wealth where we feel that now I'm not really limited by what I'm able to get as far as the material world is concerned. I can live where I want to live. I can have in my surroundings the things that I want to be there. That's one kind of wealth. And there's nothing wrong with that wealth. But when you acquire that wealth through what you might call to blameless activities, to blameless speech, blameless action of body, blameless action of blameless thoughts, when you have that wealth, then just seeing yourself, just having that realization, now I have the wealth, that gives you a certain kind of bliss, a certain kind of satisfaction. And there's nothing wrong with having that kind of a bliss. There's nothing wrong with having the sense of, I'm happy that I am wealthy materialistically speaking. Okay. Now, what do you do with that? After you achieve the bliss of having the wealth, now you can have the opportunity to have the bliss of spending it, the bliss of enjoying it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And again, as long as you use it in such a way where you actually do use it to bring yourself what you might call worldly happiness, worldly pleasure, worldly what you might call the good things in life. And as long as you do them in a way that is blameless, then that bliss that you experience, you don't have to feel remorse for having that kind of a bliss. And there's a kind of bliss that comes from that, the bliss of seeing yourself spending your own wealth. But that's spending the wealth on yourself, but also the bliss that comes when you actually do acts of charity with that wealth, where you're actually helping others achieve some level of security, some level of happiness, as far as this kind of material wealth is able to do. And seeing yourself doing this, and not just doing it because I want something from it, but that's why I'm doing it for you, because you sincerely want to help. And seeing that is something that could happen what you might say in the unconscious part of the mind. Unconsciously perceiving yourself doing this will establish you in this third kind of a bliss, the bliss of seeing yourself doing charity with your wealth. And there's nothing wrong with any of these. Now, that's the worldly kind of wealth. And the Buddha also talks about there are other kinds of wealth. And this kind of wealth, the material wealth, is like the lowest kind of wealth. Because we know there are people who possess this kind of wealth and they're not happy. There are people who possess this kind of wealth and they're not able to do anything about their own health. They have the worst kind of health. They are paranoid. They have anxiety, and the material wealth is not helping them. And interesting enough, today I think I read, I don't know why I ended up with reading those kinds of things. There's this young lady who's supposed to be like the youngest lottery winner in the world, I guess. She won the lottery when she was 17. She won like 185 million euros or something like that at the age of 17. So of course, as a 17-year-old, wow, I have $185 million. And not coming from a family where, that was already steeped in wealth. So for the first, the honeymoon phase, she was very happy, buying whatever she wanted, buying a house, buying 3 cars, and customizing them exactly the way she wanted, making them very loud. And then now she's like, I think 25 years old. She still has a lot of money. She hasn't completely blown it, but she's miserable. And one of the things that she says is that I wish I never won this. I wish I would never had it. And she talks about all the misery that came with it, all the anxiety that came with it, and how because she's a very public figure now, people are expecting a certain behavior from her. People are expecting things from her, and it's not making her happy. So she has the material wealth, but she doesn't have the happiness, which is what we aspire to have with the wealth. The reason for getting the wealth is not just for getting the wealth. The reason for getting the wealth is what we hope the wealth will be able to provide for us. And what is it that we hope that this kind of wealth will be able to provide for us? Well, the very first thing that we hope it will provide for us is it will make us happy. That's why we work so hard for it. And after that, we hope that it will give us a sense of security. We hope that it will, it will be able to, there's a classification of a certain kind which called enjoyments, not different from happy, but it's like enjoyment, being able to do different things that makes you happy. So the enjoyments. So health, security, enjoyments, and people will like you because you're able to help them, and of course they will like you. So that these are the things you can think about that we hope that this kind of material wealth will give us. Now, we went through 3 kinds of sort of contentment one can have if they have a proper relationship with wealth. And wealth doesn't necessarily mean for one person, $1 million may be a wealth. For another person, $1,000 would be a wealth. Another person, they would need $1 billion, and there are some people who need $1 trillion. And even though they have a few billion, they're not going to be satisfied until they have $1 trillion. Okay, so it's it's not fixed as to now you have it. It's the person themselves seeing themselves. Okay, this is what I consider wealth, and I have it, and I obtained it. I got to it through means that were blameless. And that's what gives you that kind of a joy, the joy of having. Now, the other kinds of what the Buddha referred to as wealth, and sometimes there's a sutra where the Buddha refers to as the 5 wealth. And that's why some of you get the greeting of the 5 wealth. And they are health, material wealth, beauty, long life, and enjoyments. And enjoyments could be, imagine at the time of, when was that? The Great Depression, when even though you have a barrel full of money, you can't do anything with it. So being able to actually acquire enjoyments, being able to enjoy it. So that's another kind of wealth. And the other four kinds of wealth that I mentioned, apart from what we refer to as material wealth, they don't depend on material wealth. But it seems to us, a lot of us are convinced either this conviction is unconscious. On the surface level, we say, no, I don't need that kind of stuff. But deep inside us, we are convinced that we need it. And we find ourselves living in a sort of imbalanced kind of way, where it seems like on the outside we are renunciates. We don't care for anything, for any material comfort. We don't care for any material, but deep inside we are convinced we need it. So there's this conflict within us that we refuse to reconcile, because somehow we have developed this dysfunctional relationship with material wealth. So somehow we villainize material wealth. And we have good examples because we see people who have it, and because they have their dysfunctional relationship with it, we think it's the wealth that does it. It's the material wealth that does it. And we have this unconscious wanting, or this unconscious dysfunctional way of relating with this material wealth. Even though on the surface we say we don't want it, but deep inside we want it. Or it could be the reverse, where it seems like we are pursuing it, but deep inside we think it's the worst thing to have. So we contradict each other. So we become that which obstructs us from actually achieving a sense of equilibrium, where we either be happy and have it, or be happy and not have it. But we can't seem to get to that place because of this conflict. And knowing that there's nothing wrong with wealth by itself, material wealth, then you can sort of begin to have a proper way of relationship with it, okay? And sort of establish, okay, all right, I want these things, I want those things, I want those, and they will give you a kind of sense of satisfaction, seeing yourself having them, seeing yourself using them in a certain way, okay? Now, all these wealth are achieved by what means? The number one cause, the number one driving force behind any of these wealth, sometimes they call the blessings, the 5 blessings. The only thing, the underlying cause behind them is, they just call it skillful behavior. Okay, just for the sake of not bring it into preconceived ideas about terms. Okay, skillful behavior, and we already know, in a way, wisdom. I forgot. Did I say wisdom? Among the 5? No? Well, put wisdom in there, unless I doubled something. Health and long life. Okay, stuck them together. Okay, wisdom. Okay. Okay. So what is the underlying understanding that becomes the cause of acquiring these kinds of wealth? Matt and I were having a conversation one day about what we promise our parents, or what we promise ourselves. This is what I'm going to do, what I'm going to be when I grow up. And rarely do we say, I'm going to be moral when I grow up. We think about, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to become this person who does this thing. But rather think about the quality of being, the quality of person that we should aspire to be. So that whether you're a doctor, whether you're an engineer, whatever you may be, if you have that quality, you feel you sort of a sense of fulfillment. You have fulfilled your life's purpose. Okay? So in the same sense, if we take care of this underlying cause, then these wealth, we will experience these wealth. It may not necessarily be that we have this much in our bank account, and then now we have this one of the wealth. But we have a relationship with the material world where we don't necessarily have that. We are not. We don't have any hang-ups about not being able to have this or that. And if we find ourselves wanting this or that, it seems to come. Even though there appears to be the appearance that I from the outside, you can't want that because you don't have the means here. I don't see that in your bank account. How are you going to be able to do this? Like you want to, all of a sudden you want to live in, I don't know, Bali for like a year. Yeah. In a villa. And there's no way the way your bank account looks, are you going to be able to do that? But you can have the kinds of wealth that is properly founded. Does that make sense? The kind of wealth that is founded on the proper behavior, the skillful behavior, where even though you don't have, the bank account says there's no way you can do it, somehow you find yourself living in Bali. Somebody invites you, come live in Bali for a year. I need someone to watch my house, watch my villa. Okay, and there you are living in Bali in that villa. Okay, and there it is. Okay, so it could happen that way. Now, what is this skillful behavior that we need to adopt? And it's not, don't look for a list. If you look for a list, you're going to just drive yourself bats. Okay. But rather look for an underlying theme. Okay. So the behavior should be such that it actually leads to the result. There must be something about the behavior, there must be something about the result that have something in common with each other. Okay? And also, there must be something about the behavior that seems to promote evolution, that seems to promote where your aspiration is heading towards. Okay, that's one of the things that you have to consider, and that's why almost in every culture, every culture where they have this tradition of deep thinking. One of the things that they find in common is what is referred to as the golden rule. There's something about the golden rule that people who really look into things deeply. So there is something about the golden rule that seems to, in the behavior of the golden rule, it promotes going in the direction of evolution, going in the direction of promoting, going in the direction of nurturing what we aspire after. Okay. And if we understand that it is mainly in the skillful behavior where the meat, so to speak, of the matter, the essence of what will one day become the five wealth, the five blessings. If we just focus on that, forget about the appearance of things. And this is where you sort of direct the energy of your faith, the energy of your conviction in that direction, in the direction of and this is something that is happening sort of naturally. As soon as you want to go in a certain direction, there is this natural sort of wisdom that says, I need to do something to get there. And I know that there are certain things that if I do, I will not get there. Because there's so many ways I can end up. And most of them would be not where I want to end up. So the path, the behavior that I take that takes me exactly to where I want to end up in, that is skillful behavior. Okay? And before we even go into listing thing, or this is the thing that's not skillful, this thing that's skillful, just hold on to that. What will actually, truly, without any deception, take you to where you really want to end up in? And you will see that in the very goal that you're aspiring after, the very behavior that will take you there must have something connected to it. Must have a way of already relating with it. Okay, so for health, for example, if you want health, so there must be in your mind a sense of respect for health, and it mustn't be one-sided. Like, I want health just for myself. So it's like you don't really want health. You want something else. If you really care about health, then you must have a universal respect for health. And wherever you notice there is absence of health, you must feel a need to connect that place, to connect that environment with health. And health is related to seeing life continuing. That's basically it. Seeing life continuing in a way where it's continuing in a way that is happy. Happily continuing. That's the definition for health. How's that? You like that definition for health? Happily continuing life. Okay. That's the definition for health. So happily continuing life. So whenever you encounter life being obstructed in its ability to continue happily, and that brings you a sense of concern. Not necessarily that everybody has to become some sort of doctor and be able to cure all disease, be able to cure all disease, but rather having a sense of respect for that, and really wanting to be surrounded by that. And you start living yourself in a way that is, as far as you're concerned, in a way, is a reflection of that. So you're showing your respect for health, not just in your words, but also in how you live, how you relate with others. Okay? So that is the skillful behavior of getting health. Respect for the continuity of life happily. I like that definition. I'm going to stick with it. Okay. Now, wealth, in terms of material wealth. What would be, so you see yourself having, and then you see the bliss or the joy of having. So this also must be some sort of universal. You must also extend it universally. Wherever you see lackness, there's something within you sees there's something wrong, and you want to address it. You want to fill this lackness. You want to address this lackness, and if you can do something about it, you do something about it. If you cannot do something about it, at least you are disturbed by it. Okay. And that will manifest. I don't care what words you want to use to describe what that behavior, what that skillful behavior is called. Okay. So that's being in tune with, I want the absence of lackness, and let it be universal. And wherever there is something I can call a self that is experiencing lackness, I should be disturbed by it. Okay. And I want to. There should be at least a genuine wish for me to do something to address it, to the best of my ability at that moment. Okay. And what's the other one? You have health, wealth, beauty. What is beauty? Oh no, never mind. It's a very difficult thing to, to describe. But just this very simple definition that we can all agree on. It is being stolen. It's encountering something that steals your attention. Encountering something that steals your attention. You can't take your attention away from it because it's giving you this pleasure when you direct your attention towards it. That's beauty. Right? Will you agree with that as a good definition for beauty? Okay. We don't have to go into deep philosophical. We don't have to go to Shakespeare. Now, and again, just apply the same thing. So you have to sort of begin to acknowledge it wherever it may be, however tiny it may be, however small it may be. And the interesting thing about it is there's one little thing. Like when we encounter something that we consider beauty, that we experience, that we be in the presence of beauty, there's a sense that this thing is connecting us to something true. That is connecting us to something much deeper than what's just appearing. Okay? And this is where there's that sense of attachment might develop. Because through that encounter, we feel connected to something deep. And that's something that we feel connected to, we feel it is true. So, do you get what the skillful behavior is in that one? When you make a commitment, be true to it. Don't deceive yourself. Don't deceive others in your behavior, in your speech. Because remember, beauty, when we encounter beauty, there is a sense of relating with it that we feel that we are encountering a non-deception. We are encountering a deep connection to truth. That's why we feel drawn. That's why we feel our attention sort of stolen, so to speak. I know may not be very convincing what I just said, but just buy it for a moment. Okay. So what the skillful behavior that leads to beauty is appreciation of beauty. That is acknowledging it where in whatever small, however small the encounter may be. Okay. And then sort of like almost as if drawing out beauty. There's this person who's very nasty. There's this, so you look for, there must be some grain of beauty in there somewhere. And then by bringing your attention to the beauty that is there, sort of like you're almost like bringing it out. And what you're saying is, I want my universe to be that. This is what I want in my universe. And by wanting that, then you want when others encounter you to have that sense, to have that response towards you. Okay? Not that you establish this as the reason for looking at beauty. I mean, if you're a little baby, you can't get rid of our selfish tendencies, me, just for me, then okay, begin that way. Okay, in order for me to have others connect to me, when they connect to me for them to feel in the presence of beauty, I'll look for beauty in wherever I can find it. That's like the baby intention for doing that. But when you become more mature, you don't need that in order for me to. Just connect with beauty wherever you notice it. Okay. And by there's this, I think it's a beautiful story by Dr. Neil, where he was, I think maybe it was his first patient or something. He's a therapist. And there's this, I guess, somebody who was in prison for murder or something like that. And then he was being released for good behavior. And well, anyway, he was supposed to be a monster. And that's how everybody saw him. And because everyone focused on the fact that he's a monster, of course he behaved like a monster for everyone. Everyone saw him as a monster. And now he started to have this relationship with the doctor, and the doctor focused on seeing where is his beauty. And the doctor sort of zoned in on his beauty and then focused on it and related to that beauty. And now because the doctor was able to connect with that beauty that he actually perceived, not that he was pretending there was beauty there, but actually found actual beauty and connected to it. He was able to allow the monster to be able to see, oh, there's beauty in me. I don't have to be this monster all the time. This monster is not my only identity. And because the doctor was relating in a realistic way with the beauty that he was allowing himself to perceive, he allowed this it was a young man actually, to actually connect with his own beauty and begin to allow that beauty to come out. And the way it came out was one day he was on his way to see the doctor, and he was, PTSD. So you already had violent tendencies, and then he was in the army and PTSD, So he committed murder eventually. So here he is about to visit the doctor, and for some reason he finds himself walking through a dark alley. And of course his automatic senses automatically come up. This is a familiar setting that I'm very familiar with, and I've already rehearsed a million times in my mind how I'm supposed to behave, and a million times I rehearse this is I have to kill somebody, or I'm going to be in trouble with someone. I'm going to get into a violence with someone. And then who was standing at the end of the alley? Some person in a trench coat, like the classic kind of setting, just standing there alone, almost as if waiting. And then the person had his hands in his pocket. And of course, in his person's mind, he was only thinking of the worst scenario. Previously, he would have just walked through and meet the violence nicely, with glee. But this time he was hesitating, sweating, because now he knew that wasn't him anymore. And then what made him hesitate was this: I may lose connection with the beauty that I found. I may become violent. And he was sweating because he was worried that he might become violent, and he didn't want he didn't want this old pattern to come back again. And as he walked and walked and walked, and then he finally very close to the person, and the person took out a cigarette, lit it, almost ignoring him, and then he finally left the dark alley, went to see the doctor, and he was sobbing. He was sobbing, and the reason that he was sobbing wasn't because of the thought that came up to his mind, but he encountered the danger of losing that sense of being, that beauty that he found. He thought he was going to lose it. And because the doctor was able to connect with him, that gave him the strength to hold on to it. That gave him the, when you need someone to, verify, validate, thank you. We need this. We need validation. We need validation from a sense of other. And the doctor was the other who validated for him, yes, there is beauty in you. I see it, and I'm connecting to it. And that gives him the validation of there must be beauty in me because this guy is not entirely crazy and is relating to some sort of beauty within me. All that is how we are able to bring about beauty, the wealth of beauty. And the wealth of wisdom is having an open mind, basically. Just that, having an open mind. Don't think you already know. No matter how much you know, don't think you already know. Don't think you know the full story. No matter how well read you are, don't think you really know it already. The only time that you can know that you know is when you have direct experience. Even that, when you have a direct experience, that itself is not necessarily now you know. You could be a direct experience of something and you draw your own conclusion about it. Remember, how did the Buddha know that this high realization, this high mental meditative state that he was able to achieve, that he was told this is liberation? How did he know that it wasn't liberation? He was just, what was it? Just, what you call it? Uppity? How did he know that this wasn't liberation? And they told him this is liberation. And it's very difficult to get to. And he was able to get to it because of discernment. So even when you have direct experience of something, you still have to apply discernment to it. And again, I have to strongly voice my disagreement with people who say that when you're in the direct experience of something, there's no way of knowing what's going on. And I say that's absolutely useless. If you're having direct experience of something, and there's no way for you to know that you're experiencing it, it's useless to you. How do you know you had it? How do you know if it was beneficial to you or not? If you're not able to apply discernment in the experience itself. Of course, the discernment that is going to take place is not some sort of conceptual way of doing it. You can have non-conceptual discernment. Okay? So the ability to apply discernment to a direct experience tells you how valid it is. And being open even to the experience itself. So just having this open mind to every experience, having this not a paranoia, not constant rejecting, but being open. And by being open, you're inviting truth. And by allowing yourself to be open to truth, then the truth is revealed to you. Slowly. And that's how your wisdom gets built up. And that is considered to be the supreme wealth. Because when you have this wealth of wisdom, it doesn't matter if you don't have the other ones. You're able to have total satisfaction. You can live in a hut. You can live in a palace. These things don't matter to you. Because what really is of value to you is the wisdom. Okay. And there are, in a sense, in a sort of like in terms of value, the material wealth is the lowest one, and the other ones are higher. And the one, like, you can have material wealth and you don't have health. What's the use of it? You can have health, wealth, and you're, I'm not going to say that word. What? Dumb. What's the use of that? And also, if you are basically, another word I was thinking of, I have to get rid of this word that's coming in my head. Sorry, I have to say it. You're an asshole. Okay. Then what's the use of it? Okay. What's the use of having all these things and then you're an asshole? So, all these things that we are aspiring, that we want, that would make us feel complete. There's nothing wrong with aspiring after them. Health, wealth, beauty, enjoyment, and of course, wisdom. Okay. And the way to acquire them is to make your behavior skillful.